Hello, everybody.
Hello. I like this one better.
Welcome to our November career workshop, Passion and Purpose, Finding Your Purpose and How It Changes Everything. My name is Sarah Hunt-Munoz, and I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives in Fordham's Office of Alumni Relations. I'm thrilled to have so many of you here this evening. I'm also thrilled to have partnered with the Office of Career Services on this event. A big thank you to Annette McLaughlin for partnering with us on this, and hopefully we'll have more workshops in the new year similar to this. Our presenter this evening is Genevieve Paturo, FCRH 83. Genevieve was a successful television marketing executive in New York City for 20 years when a little girl's question changed the course of her life forever. She began delivering pajamas and books to children in shelters, and in 2001 founded Pajama Program, a nonprofit that has been recognized nationwide for both its success and Genevieve's story. This year, the program celebrates its 20th anniversary, having delivered more than 7 million magical gifts of new pajamas and new books to children through their 63 chapters across the U.S. Genevieve is now a professional speaker and personal strategy coach, sharing life and leadership lessons she learned through her Pajama Program journey. Her first book is an Amazon bestseller and the 2021 first place winner in the inspiration category of both the National Indie Excellence Book Awards and the NYC Big Book Awards. The book is titled Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas: How to Transform Your Life, Embrace the Human Connection, and Lead with Meaning. We will be selling the book after the workshop, and Genevieve has graciously agreed to autograph each one. Genevieve has made it her mission to inspire men and women across the globe to listen to their heart-voice connection in pursuing their passions to achieve success. Genevieve, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Several of us in the room are wondering how you put your passion to practice and how can we do the same. I'm excited to learn along with everyone else here this evening. Come on up.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much, and thank you to Annette, wherever you are. There you are. I'm so thrilled to be part of President McShane's Purpose and Passion legacy, and it's just, I guess, magical and coincidental that this is his passion and has been so important to all of you, especially this year, as he's making his final contribution to this great organization. I went to Fordham at Rose Hill, and my mom is here, and my husband's here, and my parents really worked hard for me to get to go to a school I really wanted to, and I loved Fordham. I loved it out of all the New York colleges because of the campus at Rose Hill. And it's just so magical. I know some of us were talking there. How many of you get to go to Rose Hill as part of, yeah. And do you agree there's something really great about the campus there? And when I was researching, I read all the wonderful things about Fordham, and I was so excited, and I went, saw the campus and fell in love with it. And then I was reading a little bit about the Bronx, and I said, ooh, some of this stuff I shouldn't tell my parents because I'm going to live here. And I heard people talking about White Castle and how popular that was. Anybody go to White Castle? Do you go at midnight? That's like the time you go, right? You go at midnight. And if you're a guy, you're eating at 20. And I remember the first time I went at midnight with a bunch of friends, and I couldn't believe that it's a regular thing that you eat 20 of these White Castles. That was my introduction to living at Fordham and being a campus girl. Anybody eat 20 hamburgers at White Castle? Good, maybe that stopped. Health code stuff came through. So I wanted to talk about purpose, because when I was growing up in a very Italian family, this is me, the chubby girl on the right, there was just an emphasis placed on tradition and love and an Italian's food, and getting a job was really, really important. And my dad came from Italy on the boat. My mom is Italian, her parents, my father born in Italy, and it was about getting an education in this country and getting a good job. So what did I want to do? I thought, I do want to get a job. I like this Mary Tyler Moore lady on TV. Anybody watch Mary Tyler Moore and Mary Richards? I saw her, I thought, that's really cool. I could be this single girl. I could live in a big city. I could work in entertainment. I could work in a man's world and make my mark. And that'd be great. I could be single and have a great best friend like Rhoda. I can have great clothes and I could have this wonderful life. So that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. I got a job out of college. And I became as close to Mary Tyler Moore's character, Mary Richards, as I could. For 12 years, I worked on climbing that corporate ladder. And I really liked it. I was single, didn't have time for anything serious. I just wanted to be successful in a job. 12 years in, I'm sitting in my little Mary Richards apartment, and I heard a voice that came from here. And I was used to this voice, right? This head voice going a mile a minute. But in the silence, which was rare, I heard a voice ask me this question. If this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough? It stopped me cold. I knew immediately, somehow, I knew instinctively that the answer was no. That if I didn't really think about what I was doing, more than just for the money, more than just a copycat of this role model I thought I wanted to emulate, more than what tradition said, find a job, that there was something missing. And that if I kept going, I'd be alone and I'd be lonely. So the first thing I thought of was maybe there was something to this family, having children, getting married, that I missed because I was so set on being a career girl. And I realized that I did miss something in having children. So at that point, I knew it wouldn't really make sense to run out, get married, have children, but there was a way I knew to bring children into my life. So I knew from newspapers and news on TV, I'd seen recently stories about children who were taken away from horrible situations. People were supposed to love and take care of them who didn't. And the police and social workers were bringing them to these shelters. So I called the police, and I said, where do you take these children? And he told me about emergency shelters in every city, and we had them in New York City. He told me where they were. So back then, before 9/11, a lot of you, half of you are too young to know New York on 9/11, but some of you do know. So before 9/11, I could call, which I did. I called the shelter and I said, hi, I'm a nice lady. Can I come in and read to the children at night? And they said, you sound like a nice lady, sure. Don't try that now. It doesn't work quite that easily. So they welcomed me in. So in I went in my business suit with a whole bunch, like Santa Claus, a whole bunch of children's books, thinking, okay, I can read to the children at night. This is going to be really nice. I remember like it was yesterday. I walked in. They showed me into this room, which was very bare, very bare. There weren't even chairs. There were a couple little chairs for little kids. So in my business suit, I sat on the rug, which was tattered. And I could tell, it hadn't been painted. But it was a safe place for these children. And I knew that. So I sat, and then I see little faces at the door. I saw a staff person bringing children in who had been told, lady's coming to read you a story. That's all I knew. They couldn't tell me anything about the children. So I saw those little faces, and in they came, about a dozen. They saw me on the floor. They sat on the floor with me. None of them said anything. I could tell by a glance that their clothes were tight, and some were soiled. Some of them had crying. And I knew that this was an emergency shelter, which means that within 24 hours, and maybe an hour ago, the children were brought in. So I opened my bag. I started to read stories. They were silent. story after story, showed the pictures. And I remember feeling so grounded. Everything was quiet. Everything in my brain stopped. And all I was using really was my voice and my heart. And I felt connected to these children. And they were listening and looking at me. And I felt like they wanted something, and I didn't know what to give them. And I just could give them the stories. So I did that. After about 45 minutes, the staff said, okay, take the children to go to bed now. Off they went, just as quietly as they'd come in and as quietly as they'd been for 45 minutes. And I remember thinking I was at peace. I wanted to know more, but I felt grounded. I came back the next week, and I went to several shelters that the police had given me that welcomed me in. Very similar, all in New York City, the Bronx, the northern part of Manhattan, a couple in Yonkers. And one night, when I was reading the stories to the children, which was always the same, rarely did they say anything except some of them were crying, I thought, let me see where they're taking these children in that room where they're going to go to sleep. So after we read, still children followed the staff person into that room, I followed too. I peered in, and the first thing that came to mind was the love and the fun and the comfort of my bedtime, because what I saw was nothing like my bedtime from my mom and my brothers and my sister. All of us got bedtime, which I thought all children had. But I watched these children, 2 or 3 up on the surface, some of them huddling together, nobody changing into anything. Their clothes were tight and soiled, but they were safe. I kept telling myself, but they're safe. I heard a couple of them crying, and all I kept seeing was memory, my mom reading us stories and making up stories and laughing and feeling safe and knowing that she'd be there in the morning no matter what happened, and that I could go to sleep feeling that she loved me, that my parents loved me, that I had brothers in another room and my sister in the bed next to mine. So as the staff were pushing me out, because I guess I was stuck in this time warp, I turned to one of the staff people and I said, can I bring pajamas next week? And she smiled and she said, that would be so nice, sure. So all week, what job? I went shopping, I came in late, I left early. I packed suitcases of pajamas that I was going to go to the shelter with and just told my bosses I was going on a little weekend getaway. I don't know how I got through my job in the next week, because all I cared about was how many kids are going to be there and how many sizes and boys or girls, and I had to get enough. So I went with my suitcase of pajamas and the books. And I was so excited because this was going to be fun. They were going to get a gift. Read the stories, and then I told them, I have a special surprise for you. If you want to stand up in a line. And they stood up in a line, put some of the pajamas out, and I handed a pair of pajamas to the child online that I thought would fit that child. The child took the pajamas, went with the staff person, went into that room to change. Halfway down the line, there was a little girl. And I do not know to this day how old she was. I always think about 6. She came up to about here. She had lopsided pigtails. She had a lavender top on that was soiled. Her pants were tight and very short, and her sneakers were like huge size sneakers, but they were safe, and somebody gave them to her. I gave her a pretty pair of pink pajamas. She wouldn't take them. She just said, no, 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 no. And I was surprised. I tried again. She was adamant. No, 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 no. I didn't know what was wrong. So they said, okay, we're going to take her into the other room with the others, but she didn't want to go. She wanted to watch me. So a staff person stayed with her, and I gave the rest of the pajamas out. Each child took the pajamas. I had those for her on my shoulder, because I wanted to try again. So it was just her and her staff person and me in my suit. And I went over and I knelt down and I showed her. And I said, honey, these are for you. And they're pink. And you're wearing purple, has pink flowers. I know they're going to fit you, and I know you're going to like them. Feel it. And I rubbed it on her hand. I said, see how soft? and they're all yours. You don't have to give them back. You're going to sleep so well. Take your pajamas. And she looked at me, and she leaned in, and she said, "What are pajamas?" And I say it was a good thing I was already kneeling down, because I lost my balance. I could never have imagined that question from a little girl. Didn't even know what pajamas were, and had to explain what pajamas are to this little girl, that you wear them, you change for bedtime. So the staff took them from her. She understood, and they went into the other room, and she peeked out when she had them on, and she gave me this little smile. And that was it. I was a goner. Corporate ladder disappeared. The reason for working vanished, and all I wanted to do was bring pajamas to these children and do something that felt good here, that made a contribution, that made me feel connected, that made me feel at peace, and that made me feel like I had a purpose now and not just a job. So that was the beginning of what I named Pajama Program. I'd like to tell you that it was easy, that I just quit my job and went on a shopping spree and brought pajamas to all these kids every day. But there was a lot of struggle, inner struggle in me, because of how far I'd come in a job. And I had a mortgage, and I had parents, and I had friends that expected something of me. Now, I had never met anyone I wanted to marry or give up any of this wonderful corporate life experience with. But the universe has a way of bringing the right things to you when you need them. And I met my husband. And along the way, as I was trying to decide, what do I do with this thing? I can't pay the rent. I don't know how to make this something. I knew I had to see what type of future I might have with this man. And I said, you know, I'm thinking about jumping off this corporate ladder and quitting my job and giving pajamas and books and reading to children in shelters. What do you think? And I figured this was going to test him. And he said, go for it. So I had a cheerleader. And I went to my mom, and I said something similar. And she said, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I know you're going to do it. You're going to figure it out. I had 2 cheerleaders. I went to a girlfriend and confided. And she said, are you crazy? Why would you do that? You have worked so hard. You have your sights set on that top floor. How are you going to pay your rent? Why would you ever consider leaving your job? Can't you just do this once a month on a Saturday? So there were a lot of those days where I really doubted what I wanted to do. And I really didn't know how I was going to get any support or how I was going to make this work. All I knew was everything in my body was telling me, go this way, go there. You'll figure it out. Don't know how, but you're going to figure it out. And my brain was telling me, you are crazy. You are absolutely out of your mind. What are you going to do? How are you going to make things work? You're alone with this mortgage. You can't make any money doing this. After time, that battle, the brain started to realize she's serious. She's really going to do this thing. I'm pretty smart. I'll help. And there's that shift, that magical shift that your brain says, okay, I can help. And your heart just breathes a sigh of release and says, good, Now we're on the same page. So there were so many things along the way that were really scary. I'm not going to tell you there weren't any sleepless nights. There were tons of them. There was crying. There was worry. I was hiding things from my bosses. I was praying not to be fired. Almost got fired. Lots of honest stories in my book about what happened along the way. But somewhere along the way, I got signs, and I know that when you find your purpose, and it has nothing to do with having to be a nonprofit, it has nothing to do with that, it just has to do with what you love, whether it's dance, whether it's running for office to change things, whether it's advocacy, whether it's writing, whatever it is that your body and your soul says, this is joyful, this is what I want to do, this is what I was meant to do. Things will fall into place and your brain will get on board no matter how far it is. Now, I was 12 years, 13 years in to a career. But those of you who are students, this is the time. This is the time to figure it out, to know how you want your purpose to align with your life. So it's not a job and then I get to have a life. And the job is hard work and you dread getting up and you have to go and either you don't like it or maybe you like it a little, but then you get a couple hours at night and you get a couple of days on the weekend. That's fun. If you figure out what your purpose is now and you align it with your life, you will be guided so easily. Even the hard decisions will be easier because you know what's important to you, and you've already made peace with that, and you are already living the way you were meant to live from your heart. So some of the things that happened along the way when I was doubtful, because that's a big part of starting something, it's a big part of changing direction. I thought, am I really going to make a difference? Am I really going to change things for these children? Or am I just living in a fantasy world that it's going to make a difference? And I was still doing it on the side. And I was really getting down on myself. Of course, more people were trying to tell me, what are you doing? Why are you switching it? Just do this once in a while. Stay with your career. And one of those low moments, I got a call from a man who said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Where are you doing it? What do you plan to do? And I answered him honestly. I told him about the children. I told him where I was going. And I was getting nervous. I didn't know who he was. I thought he was going to arrest me or something. I was doing something wrong. And he sensed I was nervous, and he said, I'm sorry I'm making you nervous, but I want you to know I was one of those kids. I grew up in an orphanage. I heard what you're doing, and I want you to know it makes a difference. Bedtime was the saddest, loneliest time for all of us. We cried ourselves to sleep, and I wanted to know why I didn't have a mom. Where's my mom? So I want you to know you're making a difference. There you go. A sign from the universe, a sign that you're on the right track, because when you are on purpose, these things happen. These things happen. And it really just makes you understand how important it is to stay, no matter what ups and downs. So I knew if I didn't quit, I was going to get fired. I married that man. Of course, I didn't tell him everything. I didn't tell him how much I was spending. I didn't tell him about my credit cards. I didn't tell him all things, that we only had one car. And I didn't tell him that he was going to be a chauffeur. And he was going to be stuffing the car with hundreds of pajamas and bringing me here and there all over the tri-state area. Not only to give pajamas, but to pick them up from people who heard about this crazy lady giving pajamas to kids and that they had done a collection. We would drive hours to pick up a dozen pairs of pajamas from some excited people in the Bronx who made a big display of their pajamas, so happy to make this difference. And we couldn't just pick them up because they also baked cookies and made a whole display of the cookies. So the whole evening was just so purposeful And they mattered so much. So I did finally quit. I vowed I'd work at McDonald's if I had to, or maybe White Castle if I had to. A woman called, and she said, "Hi, I'm from Parenting Magazine." I knew who that was. I knew what it was, a national magazine. She said, "Are you the lady bringing pajamas to kids in Harlem shelters?" I said, "Yeah, I guess so." And she said, "Can we write a little article?" I said, "Sure." She asked me a few questions. We hung up. She said, "It's probably going to run in a few months. We'll give you a call." About 2 months later, 9/11 happened. Everything blew up. Some things literally, everything else figuratively. Our lives stopped. Real scary. I know we've been through a scary time now. Scary in New York City, 9/11. She called a few weeks later, and she actually said, "We stopped publishing. We don't know what's happening in the world. Your article is on hold. We'll let you know if we start publishing again, the article is going to be published." I thought, wow, that was really nice of her to call. So several months later, she called. And she said, "We're going to run the article. We're publishing again, and you're going to have the December/January issue. Little article, but we wanted you to know it's going to be in there." So I thought, great. So time passed, didn't think much of it. Lived in the Bronx, to my apartment, and I'm married to Demo, and I get into my front door of the apartment complex, and the doorman starts yelling at me. And he starts saying, "Get in the elevator, hurry up, get in the elevator. I have boxes for you." And he starts literally throwing boxes into the elevator with me, saying, "Go, take them upstairs and send the elevator back stairs. What are you doing? Are you starting a business? This isn't allowed here. We have no room. Everything's coming in your name. What is going on?" I had no clue what he was talking about. My husband came home, same thing. They started yelling at him, throwing boxes at him in the elevator, up and down. We had at least a dozen times up and down. This one-bedroom apartment was filled with boxes and packages. We couldn't even see each other. We were eating on them. We were wandering around. We didn't know where we were. We didn't know what was in the boxes until we said, okay. We stopped going up and down the elevator. We could take a breath. And we started opening the boxes. There were pajamas and books from people with notes, envelopes with cash from people who said, "Please give a new pair of pajamas to more children if we can help." Because that magazine hit the subscribers in their home mailboxes before it went on the newsstands. And we had no clue. And we cried, and we opened, and we saw this amazing display of support and love and comfort. And I opened an envelope that said, "If you will please send us your 501c3, we'd like to give you a grant from a company." So I looked at it and I said to my husband, "What is this thing, 501c3? I didn't have a clue. But I knew that it was now a responsibility, and I was all in. So that was an incredible signal that there was support out there, that there were people that cared, and I wasn't alone in this, and that I might have been onto something. And through the next few years, it was crazy. There were highs and there were lows. And there were stories that kept me going, like we went to give some pajamas and books to a group of children. And when we got there, we were setting up books and pajamas on the table. Some of the little kids were in the other room. And before we were ready to bring them in and share them, we saw this little boy trying to hide, but running to grab these little girl pajamas. And we were looking and giggling to ourselves, saying, "Look, he's taking the girls' pajamas. What's going on?" And he kept doing it. So we asked one of the staff people, "Do you know what he's doing?" She said, "I'll find out." So she came back about 15 minutes later with this solemn face. And she said, "He was just brought to us today. And his mother was burning him and his sister with her cigarettes. And his sister is younger, and she's in ICU, and he wants to make sure she gets enough pajamas. So there were so many of those stories that kept us going. And there were so many beautiful stories of delivering them to this orphanage. And this little girl, Isabella, she had seen us one other time a few months ago. She remembered, and she came running over to me, and she gave me a hug, and she said, "You brought more pajamas?" I said, "I did. I brought you some more pajamas." And so she whispered to me, "That's great. Next time, can you bring me shoes?" So all these stories took us from the lowest points to the highest points and just reminded us things happen. And then the one call that really changed everything was when I was alone and I got a call from a woman who said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so with the Oprah Winfrey Show. Do you have a minute?" And I thought, yeah, I have a minute, I have an hour, I have a week. And after a couple of weeks of lots of questions, they invited me to tell this story on Oprah. And if you get a chance, take a look. It's a very surprising reveal. It changed everything. Definitely, the O effect is real. And it was an incredible, incredible episode. You could Google it, you can go to YouTube, you can go to my website, GenevievePeturo.com. Email me, it's in my signature, because she is a woman that changes the world. And when I thought only people like her and Einstein and Deepak Chopra found their purpose, I was all wrong. We all have a purpose. We all know what we're supposed to be doing, because it doesn't matter what it is, you're making a contribution, and people will feel the love and the joy you have, for whether you're singing, whether you're teaching, whether you're dancing, whether you're writing, whatever you're doing, you will share that. So I'm going to go through a few slides so you don't have to just stare at me. You can see some other fun things and go along a little bit with some of the steps and some of the tips, and some of the things that I can share that may help if you're thinking about what your purpose is. So I'm doing this presentation spelling pajamas, because when I say find your purpose, sometimes I say find your pajamas. So people have heard me say that. So I'm going to give you the acronym pajamas here, and this is the P for possibilities. Point to yourself. Okay? I didn't see anybody point here. You're all right. This is where you live. This is you, not this chatter. This can help when you need an answer that's mathematical, maybe practical, but this is you. And this is what I suggest you listen to when you're making a decision about your 30 years. There are so many possibilities. In my blog, on my website, the latest blog I have is an exercise that you can do. I'll do it quickly with you, but you can do it for an hour and a half. It outlines it. So that'll help if you want to think about, if you have some time, make the time to think about what moves you, what your path might be. So basically it asks you for an hour and a half of your time by yourself, glass of wine, cup of green tea, cookies, whatever, pizza, and write with pen to paper. Start with the 10 things that you love to do. The exercise will take you through to go down, down. But basically I'm asking you to feel what your body's telling you when you say each of the things you write down. How you feel about spending your life in this joy, in this topic. And it narrows it down, and it gives you some more exercises that start that way. So if you want to spend an hour and a half, please do that. It's well worth getting to know yourself that way. So the P is possibilities. Ask a lot of questions. Ask yourself what you love to do. Ask yourself what makes your heart sing. And it might be singing. And we'll get to a point later, the next letter, you'll see about a jump or a slide. So just ask yourself questions and ask other people. If you want to be a veterinarian and you're a teacher, the exercise will show you how to find those people who can give you an idea of what their day is, what they need, what you need to make that happen for yourself. So it's all about asking yourself hard questions and asking everybody you know, because you're going to see that your best key is human connection. That is everything. That's everything. For me, it was everything with my husband saying, go for it, to Dave saying, I was that little boy, to all those people who connected with me from Parenting Magazine, to all the people in Oprah's audience in the studio and watching, and Oprah herself, through 20 years now. The human connection is what is going to save you when you are lower than you thought. And they're going to be there. It's going to be there to celebrate with you when you're higher than you believe you can ever be. So I was talking to some of you before about lining up your cheerleaders. My mom is here. My husband's here. Get those people in your corner soon. As soon as you have an idea, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to need some support. Go to your cheerleaders. Because those people like my friend, those naysayers, are going to knock you down. They're going to knock you down. They're going to try to tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't, couldn't, won't. And the only way you're going to be able to get up is with your cheerleaders. So this is, this is my husband. I tease him. I say, this is what happened when I told him what I was doing. I told him I was making the jump. I teach the jump or the slide. And one of the things you have to think about is, who else is it going to affect? And he doesn't even drink, but a jump is what I did. I don't know. Some people are wired that way. I'm wired that way. You can slide. You can sing. You don't have to quit your job to sing. You can teach. You don't necessarily have to quit your job to teach at night. I call it a slide, and there are ways to do that. And if any of you want to talk more, I have my cards. I'm the happiest when people ask, you know, can you just listen? Let me just ramble on. Let me tell you all the pros and cons of what I want to do. But there are ways to bring that in. And if you slide in whatever your purpose is, even an hour a week, it will change you. Especially now after the pandemic, we've all pushed whatever's been on the back burner further back, right? When there's money, when I'm retired, when. That's heartbreaking to see it that far back. Bring it up an hour a week. Just join a choir. Just take a course. Do something that fills that void that you know what you want to fill it with. And you will feel that joy, and others will too. It's contagious. So take the first steps. If you want to teach, if you want to work with seniors, if you want to do some landscaping, if you want to work with animals or ride horses, take the first steps. Take a course. Find out what you need. Talk to the people who are in the business. Ask them, what can I do for an hour a week? Can I shadow you? Can you tell me where to read things? Can you tell me what to look up? They will help you. I promise you. The human connection is an incredible, an invisible, magical instrument. Just ask. Talk to people. When you make the decision, it's scary. Sometimes you just have to do it afraid. And when I heard that, it relaxed me a little bit, crazy as it sounds, because you can't keep fighting it. I always say, feel the fear, do it anyway. It's another way of saying it. When you make your decision and you commit, it might be scary, and it's okay. There's not one successful person that's going to tell you, never scared, never worried about a thing. Not one. The next A is always, always believe in yourself and the universe. Because when you are on purpose, when you're doing what you're supposed to do and there's no friction between what your head's telling you and what your heart's telling you, and they come together because you've made the decision and your heart and your head finally are helping each other, the craziest things will happen. The universe will align, people will show up, you'll get what you need, and you won't even know how. But it's just because you are aligned with your purpose. speak to everyone. Everyone. Might be somebody great who's going to call you up and help you. Might be somebody down the street who you didn't know could help you. But if you talk to everyone, you will be amazed at how people will rally to support you. And you don't even have to have all the answers. I got a call early on when I was just doing this. I was on a radio show during the holidays. I was asking people to help. I got a call from a woman in New Jersey who said, I hear you on the station in New Jersey. Can I do this pajama program thing, help you in New Jersey? I said, yeah, that'd be great. She said, what do I do? I said, I have no idea. I didn't know how to tell her what to do. I was going day by day, moment by moment. She turned out to be the #1 chapter. 63 now. She was #1 for 100,000 pairs of pajamas before she had to leave us. She just was on purpose. Now, okay, that's great. That was a woman who heard me on the radio. Well, there was a little more to it. Not for about 1.5 years did I know. She took me aside and she said, I never told you this. I want to tell you this. I was very sick. I was bedridden. I didn't get out of bed for months. My family didn't know what to do, how to help me. I was so depressed and didn't leave the house. 6 months, didn't leave my bed for 2 or 3 months. I asked God to please give me a sign of something, to use me to do something, to give me the courage to get up and walk out of this house and find something that I could do for God. And that afternoon, I heard you on the radio. And she stayed with us 10 years, and we're still very close. She still lives in New Jersey, and she's a great teacher for All Things Pajama Program. How could I have ever imagined this would motivate somebody to want to get involved? But I was on purpose. She was looking for purpose. 2 of us met. Speak to everyone. So these are the tips or things that I think are the most important takeaways. To think of all the possibilities. Nothing's impossible. Try the exercise in my blog. Ask yourself the hard questions. Don't think about the naysayers. Don't think about the shoulds or the coulds. Think about the hard questions, what your heart, what your joy is. Decide, is this all in? Are you jumping like some of us are crazy? Or are you going to try to slide it in and make it work and grow it? Both work. Take the first step, 1 step. You don't have to see the whole mile, just the first step and the second step. You'll be guided. Make the decision. Don't worry if you're afraid. We're all afraid. Always, always believe in yourself and believe in the magic of the universe. Believe in the magic of God. Believe in the magic of people. Speak to everyone. Because the biggest lesson I've learned is it's not the power of one that changes things. It's the power of one another that moves mountains and moves people. I promise you. Because your next 30 years is up to you. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to answer any questions or know what you're thinking. It's hard with the masks. It's hard to see and to know what you're thinking. But first I'll ask if there are any questions, and I'll ask if anyone would share something about what they're. Yes, and tell us your name. Emily. Hi, Emily. You can stay and slide. You can stay in the slide. You can slide something into your life, and you can, as long as that is filling that hole. Emily asked, is the slide for a certain amount of time and then you have to jump? And I said, no. if the slide works to fill that hole that you've felt, and you know that that item, that topic that you've slid into your life is filling that, and you feel like this is enough, this is honestly great, then you can live there. Anybody else have a question? Yes. Tell me your name again. Anastasia.
First of all, I think we all you a clap because I think it's so.
Oh, thank you.
Second of all, I don't know. This is really fascinating. It's inspirational, and I just wanted to ask, like, maybe we are on the right path. Like, is there something that made you like feel that no, I'm not gonna follow my idol, this woman, and maybe that's some kind of different. So, so my question is like, when you were following your idol, did you felt like motivated or inspired, or you were just following it like by the rule, and then something motivated you about the pajamas? Because every day when I come here and study, and I study environmental studies, which is also really inspirational because it's kind of like change the world, save the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell myself that yes, it might be something that I'm into, but maybe it's the laws that make me question, or maybe I need to work more. So I don't know. I'm just always questioning. And so what was like the turning point that made you feel that it's mine? So I'm doing it.
Okay, I'm going to try to summarize it in case anybody didn't hear. Anastasia wanted to know about, first, for me, if there was a moment that I felt inspired, knowing that what I was doing, finding a job and living the Mary Tyler Moore life, if I knew that something was missing, and if there was a moment that inspired me to change, right? So I'll answer that part first. Yes, and I didn't know it. I was going along just fine. I was working, liked my job, it was fine. It never occurred to me until that voice asked me, if this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough? It never occurred to me to think about fulfillment, meaning, purpose, emotion, passion. It just wasn't part of what I was looking for. I didn't know you were allowed to look for that. I thought only famous people got to have a purpose, like Oprah, like Deepak Chopra, Einstein, like all these people. I thought they were the lucky ones, and the rest of us were just lucky enough to get a job. So until I had that moment of that question that I heard, and I think maybe it was trying to ask me before I heard it that day, but I was too busy to hear it. But when I heard that, immediately I just knew, 30 years. What does this feel like? And it was like a dread, like, oh my goodness, I'd never thought about 30 years is a long time. I had already been doing it 12. So that was the moment that made me stop, because I felt, when I heard that question, I felt that there was something missing. And tell us more about your situation.
So like, it's my like, I'm a sophomore, so I don't know if there's like, I don't even know if what is there, so I don't know if I'm missing something or not. So you were in your career for like 13 years, and at some point you decided that no, I want to do something else.
Right.
But I think for me and I like for everyone who's just like in this situation, in sophomore and in college, I think that we don't know what we want, like in general. So it's hard to say what we don't want.
Right,
Do
right.
you understand?
Yes.
You said what you want.
Yes, yes.
It's hard to say what you don't want because we don't know.
Right, right. So Anastasia is saying, as a sophomore, and a lot of college students don't know enough yet about opportunities or what to do or how to follow your heart, so you're on a path. Being on a path is fine, but find what you love about this path, what you love about this topic that you've chosen. Hopefully there is something that you do love about it, and make sure you're following the career that will fulfill what you love about this work that you're thinking about doing. So find something in there if you're enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it and you want to make a change, be honest with yourself. Now's the time to make a change. But if you like it or you want to pursue something, give it some more time, then just look for something in that realm that is really what you love about it, and go toward that. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah. So try to examine all the ways you can get a job and a career that aligns with what you love about it and aligns with your purpose in the world. Shouldn't be separate. Should be the same. Should be coexisting.
Genevieve, would you say that you could find a career that combines passions? Like you're an accounting major, but you love music. Well, every music label has an accounting department.
Mm-hmm.
So could you try to, keep your practical job, but also incorporate some of your other passions into that career?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. You can. If you're doing, just like what Sarah said, if you are interested in, and you have a good job doing something you love, but you don't just want to do that at any kind of an office, you want to be in the surroundings that feed you, that you love, then yes. What do you love? Maybe you can bring those skills to that. Or maybe that's a slide. Maybe you stay in your job and you sing. You join a choir. You take a couple of lessons. There are ways to combine what you love into your life. The one thing that I ask you to really consider is don't leave this passion, purpose, whatever you want to call it, out of your life. Just bring it in, either in a big way or a small way. Just don't keep it on the back burner. Thanks. Anybody else have a question or anything that they're exploring or thinking about? Anybody find 100% know what you want to do and you love it? Good. Tell us.
I've been dancing since I was 5 years old, so for 15 years, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. And I've taught this summer. I had this wonderful opportunity of teaching kids, and I also realized I love that. So I'm trying to decide when I want to actually dance in front of me versus teaching kids and kind of match that together. But I absolutely love dance, so that's a passion that I have.
And when did you realize this? How lucky were you?
Well, I realized it this summer. I did teach kids in the past, but it was more so like an assistant role. But this time I was a lead teacher, and just being with kids every day is something to look forward to and go to the future. So this summer was when I really realized that I love teaching, and teaching dance is just the best of both worlds.
That's great. How old are you?
20.
Oh, wow. I'm so envious. 20. That's great that you found that passion and that you started it on that path already. That's great. Bravo. Anybody else know or have an idea what they want to do? She's inspiring, right? She's 20 and she already has this passion. That's great. That's great.
Genevieve, it looks like you also have a second passion. You went from charity work, and now you're a writer and a speaker and a coach. So you've also pivoted a little bit and explored another direction, another passion.
Yeah, it's
so there's
that
chapters too that you can do different passions.
Yeah, it's that gene, that jumping gene again. After 20 so years and speaking so much and coaching people and mentoring people on finding purpose and telling this story, I went to our board of directors and I said, I want to give back my salary. I want somebody else to be the executive director, and I will make my way speaking and telling the story, because I think it's part 2 of my purpose, to share and to be there for anybody who wants to explore what they're thinking about doing, and remind everyone that it's not easy, but it's so worth it. And I wanted to write this book, which is full of true stories, the good and the bad, the surprising things, a few Oprah stories that they allowed me to write. And so I took a chance, and I didn't know the book was going to come out in the pandemic. I didn't know I was going to start to try to build a new, different chapter of income. But we all went inward in the pandemic, and I hope we're exchanging the pivot P word for the purpose P word, because everybody is thinking about it and talking about it and realizing that that's what's might have been missing for a lot of us, that purposeful, meaningful work and life and all of that. So you know, things happen for a reason, to let you know you're on track. Anybody else have a question or anything? Well, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful day, and thanks for sharing your evening with me, and thank you. I'll leave my cards. If you want to buy a book, I'll sign your book. I'd be happy to, and always open to talk more. Thank you.